Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming today. My name is Moises Cona. I am the UKTI Commercial Officer for the Built Environment in Brazil, based in the British Consulate in São Paulo. In my presentation today, I would like to approach some legal and business aspects of the solid waste management sector in Brazil. This section actually will be shared with Flavio Ribeiro, who is an advisor at CETEB, the environmental agency in São Paulo. Well, firstly, I would like to present you some micro information on Brazil so you can have an idea of market size and key investment drivers and what the UK-Brazil relationship has been, followed by a quick overview on the waste management sector, which will be further discussed during Flavio's presentation. And finally, I'd like to point out some challenges UK companies usually face in Brazil and how UKTI local team can assist you in overcome these challenges. Well, Brazil is a country with a GDP of around 2.2 trillion US dollars. Is in the top 10 largest economies in the world today, and although it still has a commodity-based economy. It has a huge and young population and just hosted the Football World Cup and will host, as you know, the 2016 Olympic Games in Rio. And this, both sporting events in Brazil have been demanding massive investments in urban and social development and transport infrastructure. In terms of foreign trade, the main products the UK exports to Brazil are machinery, vehicles, pharmaceutical products, chemicals, plastics, and beverages. In terms of political affairs, with 3 weeks left before the presidential elections in Brazil, final results is still unclear, since an aircraft accident killed one of the presidential candidates in August, and according to the latest polls, Marina Silva, a former environmental minister, would defeat the current president, Dilma Rousseff, in a second round runoff. Okay. So for those who are not familiar with, this is Brazil map and the 5 geographical regions the country is divided into: North, Northeast, Central West, Southeast, and South. And it's important to highlight that every region in Brazil has a different business profile that overseas companies should adapt themselves to. But the Southeast region is where 43% of Brazilian population lives and is also responsible for 54% of the Brazilian GDP. And as in this region are located the most economically important cities in Brazil, São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and Belo Horizonte. And also where the infrastructure bottlenecks stand out, as there is a great concentration of urban population and a massive challenges for environmental related issues, as the current water shortage São Paulo is facing. So Brazil is growing, but most agree that infrastructure bottlenecks are the major impediments to growth. And to overcome these challenges, the Brazilian government has been launching some investment programs as the Growth Acceleration Program, known as PAC, to improve infrastructure in areas such as energy, transport, housing, and sanitation. And following and being incorporated by PAC, there are different sector programs for focus on logistics for rail, ports, airports, and roads, power generation, social housing, besides 15 billion US dollars investments for hosting the Olympic Games in Rio, and a national basic sanitation plan that was recently approved by the Congress in Brazil, and it covers and integrates sectors for investments for water supply, sewage treatment, waste management, and drainage. So, given the UK expertise, this country is a key partner to Brazil to deliver these projects, and these are some of the major UK companies already operating in the market in Brazil, in sectors that vary from oil and gas, engineering, architecture, hospitality, automotive, telecommunications, mining, energy, machinery, and professional services. So when it comes to waste management, Brazil faces many challenges, and despite of having a new legislation on solid waste, waste production is expected to continue to increase in Brazil in the next 15 years, and is currently increasing at about 7 to 10% per year. As huge proportion of waste is still sent to open dumps, improving waste management practices in Brazil is a priority area for the government. And in summary, this national policy recognizes the economic and social benefits of reusing, recycling, and recovering waste by encouraging investments in recycling and energy from waste facilities, and also supporting cooperation between private and public sectors, requiring cities to abolish uncontrolled landfills, and some industries to implement a waste reverse logistics system, aiming to recover and recycling and have proper disposal of the waste generated. Okay. Well, under the Brazilian Constitution, it is the responsibility of each municipal government to provide adequate waste management services in its territory, and some figures from the latest report from the Brazilian Association of Waste Management shows that while 90% of municipalities of the municipal solid waste is collected in Brazil, only 58 of the waste is sent to controlled landfills, and the rest is still going to uncontrolled ones. Currently, 62 out of 5,500 municipalities in Brazil has some kind of selective collection, which does not mean that a full process of reusing and recycling has been implemented by these cities. I'll not get into further details on sector information because Flavio's presentation will cover most of it, okay? Just a quick note on energy from waste segment. This national policy supports increased energy generation from waste, and it is in São Paulo where the largest existing facilities for operating energy generation from landfill gas are based, okay? And besides this huge potential of generating energy from waste from agriculture sector, from sewage treatment and waste management, biogas-based energy in Brazil is still in its very early stages. And in only a few cases is biogas from landfills being used to generate electricity in Brazil. That is why the Brazilian Minister for Cities has launched, is currently running actually, a 5-year project to improve biogas energy potential in Brazil. This project is called Pro Biogas, and whose objectives are disseminating information on energy generation from biogas, enabling local organizations that strategically look after energy and sanitation around the country, and fostering partnerships with private and public sector and academia. Well, the waste management private sector in Brazil is well represented through a couple of associations, but the two key associations in Brazil for the waste management sector would be ABRELP and ABS. ABRELP congregates the largest urban cleaning operators in Brazil, is a member of ISVA, and also a partner in delivering RWM Brazil, which was held last week in Brazil. The other one is ABS, the Brazilian Association of Sanitary and Environmental Engineering Companies, which has a special committee covering waste management. And as a key event in the solid waste sector, since last year, Brazil has been hosting RWM as well, and UKTI has been supporting this event. As we understand, it's a great opportunity for UK companies starting showcasing their products and services in Brazil. There is a market that's quite willing to learn more about the UK expertise in this sector. So Brazil, in fact, is a big market full of opportunities, but it also presents some great challenges that UK companies should be aware and understand. Usually, bureaucracy, paperwork, and high import taxes are the major problems, the major challenges in Brazil. Also, there is also a language barrier, as many Brazilian businesses don't speak English. Infrastructure bottlenecks are also in the agenda, and improvements in ports, airports, roads are in fact needed in Brazil and would help to speed up some bureaucratic process and also transportation within the country. Given that, the most advisable way of entering the market for a UK company would be through a local partner, either if you're exporting a product or a service. As an experienced and reliable partner in Brazil would most likely to understand how the process works in Brazil, how the government works in Brazil, and would be easier to overcome some of these challenges. For a UK company, when they start looking to Brazil, UK companies need to develop two key skills: flexibility and patience. So it's important to analyze all business opportunities in Brazil, such as technology transfer, agency agreement, and even manufacturing under license in Brazil. And of course, it is a market that requires long-term investment, which causes a common mistake by some companies that choose to change their strategy in the market when they cannot see immediate results from Brazil. So some of you may be familiar with the UKTI Services in Brazil, how we support UK companies doing business overseas. They are usually aimed to enhance and reducing time and risk for UK companies looking for reliable partners or getting information on the market. And UKTI can help you with to overcome some of the challenges I just mentioned. Well, I'm not getting into details on each of them, but if you are interested in getting to know more about how UKTI can help you, I'll be available this afternoon or after the presentation to talk individually to each one of you, okay? But I would like to mention that UKTI in Brazil is currently running 5 high-value opportunity programs in Brazil. They are programs where UK companies have great possibilities of winning contracts in Brazil. And these programs, they are focused on oil and gas sector with Petrobras business plan, sport infrastructure given the World Cup and the Olympics coming, transport for ports, airports, and rails, healthcare, shipyard, and shipbuilding program. So if you think your company may be supplying for any of these sectors in Brazil, please talk to me and I can put you in contact with the sector lead in Brazil, okay? Well, this is the Brazil network from the UK government. We are present in 5 different cities in Brazil, but the UKTI main office is in São Paulo at the British Consulate. There are around 50 people covering a wide range of sectors, besides a network of honorary consuls in key cities in Brazil as Belo Horizonte, Curitiba, Florianópolis, and Campinas. And besides UKTI staff, this network is also made up of teams looking after science and innovation, bilateral cooperation programs, consular assistance, and economics and political affairs, including a DFID unit in Brazil. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your attention. I will now pass the word to Flavio, who will cover an overview on the waste management sector in Brazil. Okay, thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank very much for UKTI for the opportunity to be here. My intention is to convince you that we are a fantastic place to invest, not only because of the opportunities, but also because of the stable regulatory framework and a strong and reliable environmental agency we are. Just for you to have an idea of who we are one of the 26 Brazilian states. We are just over here. And well, we represent 2% of Brazilian territory, which is the same size of UK, with 12% of municipalities, 20% of population, 33 to 34% of GDP, 40% of industrial production, really concentrated industries, and a lot of scientific research. Besides, we produce 16% of all the ethanol production. This means that we have a lot of sugarcane plantations. 25% of our area it's covered of sugarcane plantations. Just some snapshots for you to have an idea that our main challenge is to combine development and environmental protection. Actually, 14% of São Paulo state area is protected by law. In terms of environmental agency, we were founded 46 years ago, one of the more old environmental agencies in the world. We are 22,500 employees, and some numbers on our activities, just you to have an idea of how much job we have. Talking about waste management, Moises have already showed some figures, but it's important to say that for Brazil as a whole, the things started with some 1 kilo per inhabitant day for municipal solid waste generation. It's not too much, but the problem starts when 20% of these is not even collected. This means going to riversides, going to different places we don't know exactly where they are, and mainly in the northeastern part of the country and north part of the country, which means Amazon. For example, Brazilian waste is mainly landfilled. So you can imagine what is to construct a landfill in the Amazon area, where it's really humid, where you have a lot of rain and really difficult geological conditions to put a landfill. Well, the second point is that the part it's collected from this, 40% is irregular disposed. This is what we call lixões, where different kinds of irregular activity are conducted. In terms of number of municipalities, 60% of Brazilian municipalities does not dispose regularly their waste. So this is an important information for the next slide, is that for Brazil as a whole, the first target of a waste policy is to landfill more. Well, just some numbers on our expenses on resources. And in our opinion, we spend too low money on waste management. And that's other challenge for us, to increase how much we spend on collection disposal, because there is a huge market, but low investments. On other figures, interesting, almost 40% of the municipalities, we are talking about around 6,000 municipalities in Brazil. Around 40% does not have any recycling or separate collection scheme. This is really a problem. But, however, for some valuable materials, there is high percentage of collection and recycling, like aluminum cans, PET bottles, and some paper. Part of this job is conducted by the waste pickers, like this guy here, walking through the streets, collecting waste in different models, and they earn money selling this for industries. Other figures on construction, demolition, collection, and healthcare waste collection. In São Paulo state, on the other hand, the first thing is that we generate more or less 10% more per inhabitant. So different consumption levels, different waste generation levels. The second is that almost everything is collected. And our problem here is, well, we do landfill well, but we need more. No, our challenge here is to not landfill anymore, to recycle more. So it's a different challenge than of the rest of the country. Around 2% of the waste is still not properly landfilled. This is a judicial problem nowadays. All those irregular areas are under our scrutiny, and they are receiving fines, huge fines. Just for having an idea, this is the state situation in terms of municipalities in 1997 and last year in terms of the regular disposal of waste. So this is a huge work for environmental agency enforcement job, really going to the municipal powers and enforcing them the existing legislation. Not a very politically sympathetic measure to take, but other things interesting. The 3/4 of municipalities do have some scheme, but we are keen to increase these numbers with some EPR systems we are putting into practice. Other thing, we are registering the waste pickers associations. They operate like this. You can see no protection equipment, very hand selection, not really nice situation. We are trying to obtain some funding and sometimes giving funding directly to them, sometimes through the municipalities to equipment and capacity building, this kind of things. Other things, we have already 24 huge recycling units for construction demolition waste. We are trying to put an obligation in our law for public procurement to use preferably construction demolition recyclable waste. And other figures on healthcare, industrial waste, and a very important waste to us, sugarcane bagasse. Just here to have an idea, we are talking about 100 times municipal waste generation of a really biomass, stable and homogeneous material ready to use like in these conditions. And they keep this at the plant to burn into boilers and use firstly to take all the processes into the sugarcane ethanol production and then sell to the grid the excellent electricity. So depending on the plant, you are talking about different pressures, different conditions of burning. They are using different technologies depending on the case. Well, and about waste policy, we had the national policy from 2010, but São Paulo State had a more old solid waste policy. It's really similar policies. We are making some amendments this year to make them more modern. And we created, you can go further on each one of these if you wanted, but 4 huge projects at São Paulo State to tackle the policy. Planning. The plan, I will show the most important targets. The plan will be launched next week on September 25th in São Paulo, so it's a brand new plan. We are supporting municipalities, some £2 million in 3 years, just to organize planning for waste management into municipalities. There is also a fund, which is £70 million found on the last 10 years, I believe, just for equipment. Also environmental education, we are talking about 5,000 schools run by state power, where 6 million children studies. So we are talking about more or less 4 million families. A lot of people engaged with environmental subjects inside the education, and really improvements on solid waste management. And here, mainly EPR schemes put into practice. We can discuss more about this later. It's the most important part of my job for the last 3 years, I believe. Well, just for you to have an idea of our targets for the next 10 years, in our waste management plan, this is brand new, first-hand information. The plan will be launched next week, so very few people saw this. First targets have all municipalities with a waste management plan until 2018. In fact, we believe this target will be met next year. We are talking about 645 municipalities. Up to now, 500 have already approved plan. Other more difficult thing is to have all generators with a private waste management plan. For huge installation, industrial retailers, it's not too difficult, but the difficulty here is to the medium-sized enterprises. So we are thinking about collaborative models for planning together with municipality to solve this challenge. Other thing, we are developing a TI system to really track waste flows. Up to now, it's self-declared system. Once a year, the guy declared how much waste they generate, where they send it, etc. The idea is to really have a tracking system to track each flow by each pass for transportation, final destination treatment, etc. We have already a construction demolition flow already in operation. Next year, the module for hazardous waste will become in operation, and so on until the next 10 years. But we hope before 2018 to have all of this done. Other thing we are proposing the governor, important thing Moises said, we will have next October 5th elections for governor, for state governor, and for president, and also for deputies at both levels. So a lot of things in politics will change for the next year. So technical staff of environmental agency, we are preparing a pack of proposals of amendments for the law and also for programs for the environmental agency. And we proposed a 1.5 billion pounds fund for equipment to finance here. Some tax policies, including the decreasing of the tax for equipment for waste management. It's really important in our opinion. And also some really interesting requirements on recycling inside the green purchasing program. This together with the fostering of eco-design and circular economy is part of our partnership with the UK government, signed last March, I believe. So that's one of the things that bring me here. And other things, I will not read all of them, but targets for remediation of illegal dump sites. We have already officially mapped 4,500 contaminated sites in Brazil. There is a whole procedure to decontaminate them and reuse them, including for housing in some cases. Some targets for reduction of recyclables in landfills, like a landfill ban-like system. Expansion of selective collection and reduction of compostable waste at landfills too. Starting obviously with green waste, the quick wins ones, and then the municipal organic fraction too. Increasing methane recovery from landfills, Moises cited this. There is some projects really succeeded in São Paulo state. We'd like to increase them. The inclusion of the waste pickers. This is a huge problem because the waste policy, it's clear to have social inclusion as a target, but it's not a very simple question. We can discuss this later if you want. Also implement construction and demolition recycling programs inside public binding, including, and a very aggressive target for us. We are struggling to put EPR into practice, but we understand this is a federal scheme that have to be put on operation. But as I state, we cannot do nothing while the federal government does not succeed in to implement this. So the Secretary proposed an amendment of the law creating a prohibition to sell products in São Paulo state without a recognition EPR system associated. We are talking about the state which consumes more or less 40% of everything that's sold in Brazil. So this really can push things. Personally, I don't know if the deputies will approve this law, but only putting this into discussion really generates some momentum for EPR system implementation. Well, in terms of just the last slide, in opportunities, I believe there is opportunities in equipment, a lot of different equipments. São Paulo City, we're talking about 11 million inhabitant city. We generate 16,000 tons per day of municipal waste in one city, going to 2 landfills, more or less 7,000 to 8,000 tons per day landfills, with mixed waste, different kinds, including glass bottles, including newspapers, things that could be really easily recovered. And the municipal power just started 2 automatic centrals for sorting, huge ones, and they are planning to put 6 more into operation for the next year. So it's a huge opportunity to equipment selling. Other treatment facilities, including organic fractions, we are approving a standard for composting. So there is different options here. And also waste to energy. São Paulo State enacted a specific regulation for incineration. And it's based on European Union standards for dioxins, furans, etc. It's much more strict than the national standards. but this allowed us to already permitted one installation, and we are about to permit the second one. 700 tons a day incineration plants at the side of the city, really interesting solution maybe for mixed waste. Dismantling facilities mainly for electronics and cars. There is a lot of people interested on this. Already two operating for nobody operating yet for cars. And recycling plants. The problem is that, in my opinion, our recycling plants for different kinds of materials are at the limit at their operation capacity. And if we really increase, and I believe we do, the amount of recycling, we do need more recycling plants for different materials, including EPR waste, and we are talking about including smelters. We are trying to convince the governor to give a specific fund to bring, to attract some investment for a smelter in São Paulo state to attend all Latin America. There is a clear objective for our secretary to turn São Paulo a waste management hub for Latin America. And I believe it's possible in the next 5 to 10 years, maybe. And services, clearly consulting and solutions for waste recovery, EPR organizations, environmental education, environmental communication campaigns, and so there's a lot of opportunities. We, as an environmental agency, we offer stable regulatory framework, open dialogue, and I believe better conditions for giving security to invest in São Paulo.